Good morning, scholars. Today we're going to continue our way through Forest Homeric Greek, looking at lines 304 to 311 of Book 1 of the Iliad. We've reached the stage halfway, approximately, through Book 1, where Achilles and Agamemnon separate after their long quarrel, their back and forth, which takes up most of actually Book 1. So we've reached a stage where I want not only to start moving a bit more quickly, but we'll also be from time to time reviewing some of the lists in Owen and Goodspeed's Homeric vocabularies. These are word frequency lists and are very important to mastering in order to be able to move through the Iliad and Odyssey as quickly as we will want to. Okay, so Hos to antibiose magesameno webesen ansteden lusandagoren paraneusenakaion per leides men epiklesias kaineas ewisas eiesun temenoi diade kai voice etaroisen. Atreides dara nea do ein halade prover rusan endereta sacrinen ewe goisen eis decaton ben besete oi anade cruce ide calibare on heisen agon Endarkos ebe polumetis Odysseus. Okay, so the whole section will have quite a few duels in it, because here we have the duels referring respectively to Agamemnon, Achilles, but very soon we're going to be looking at the duels when the narrator recounts Agamemnon sending the two heralds to go and get Achilles' slave girl. So duels will be very prominent now, so we'll be paying attention to them so you can consolidate them. So, hos to antibioise magesameno webesen. So this to magesameno, the omega endings, are your dual forms. So if you look at the endings of hos, he, ho, you see under the dual for the nominative and accusative in the feminine, the masculine, and the neuter, you have do, do, do. So that omega carries over, of course, to the middle forms of the participle as well, which are, of course, decline like ho, he, to as well. So to, magesameno, and of course this is the aorist middle participle, dual nominative. Antibios, when it applies to words, means wrangling or fighting words. Antibios, jangling, that's a word that you wouldn't really hear in modern English, but wrangling, you might say. So, hos to antibiose magesameno webesen ansteden lusandagorend para neusen akaion. So, antesten, we have another dual. This is the third person dual of the second aorist of anisteme, which means to rise or to close an assembly. So, magesameno, the two having fought, that's the significance that you often have with the aorist participle it describes an action previous to that of the main verb. Anstätten, the two of them, they closed the assembly. Lösen is to dissolve or dismiss an assembly. Lösen dagoren para neusen akaioi. And this idea of para is in the direction, well, actually beside, because you see it followed by a dative, so it'll be of location, para neusen, and they dissolved the assembly beside the ships of the Achaeans. And so agoras is a general gathering or assembly. So looking more closely at the dual ending of anstätten, we see from this super chart of the endings, active, middle, and then we have the endings of the primary tenses and the secondary tenses in each of those. So of course, the primary tenses are used in the indicative and subjunctive, the secondary tenses in the indicative and the optative, because the optative is, as it were, the secondary tense related to the subjunctive, and likewise the middle. But if we look at the dual forms, we see that they're really quite simple, because your ending is always going to be an omicron nu, except in the third plural of the secondary endings where you have eta nu. So that leaves you with ton, tain in the active, and ston, stain in the middle. So what we have in anstätten is the same ending we had when we were talking about Achilles and Agamemnon disagreeing in the opening prologue of the poem, ex hu de ta prota diastaten erisante. So just as diastaten erisante, so now they anstätten. Peleides men epiklesias kaineas ewisas. So klesie is a hut or a cabin, and neos, of course, is ships, and it has often this epithet ewisas, here a feminine plural accusative, which means well balanced or evenly keeled. So you can compare isos and u and the forms with prophetic epsilon, ewisos or esos, and these occur when you're talking about ships, well balanced as here, shields, i.e. you can imagine a shield being well balanced. Intelligence can be sound or sane, that is well balanced again, and of meals, in which one gets a good share. I'm sure they didn't have our notion of nutritional value, but we do even say a well-balanced meal. So you can speak of well-balanced ships, intelligence, shields, and meals. So, of course, ships, and here's the declension of the plural, you have to deal with some weirdness insofar as you go back and forth between the eta and the epsilon in the first syllable. So the nominative can be, of the plural of course, can be nes, but it could also be nes if they need two shorts. And neon, but neon if you need a short and a long. And then the dative, neuse, or neesen, or neesen, depending again on what quantity the verse requires. And then the accusative plural, neos, or neos. So, esun menoi tiade, kai voice hetyroi sen. So, who is this menoi tiade? This, of course, is Patroclus. So, Patroclus was the son of Menoetius, so hence you get the patronymic Menoetiades, and the grandson of Actor, so sometimes he's even referred to as Octorides. And he, having been obliged on the count of homicide to flee from Opus, where his father was king, he retired to the court of Peleus, the king of Pitys, where he contracted a most intimate friendship with Achilles, the son of Peleus. Now, we'll see as we go into the plot advance in the course of the Iliad. After the succession of Achilles from the Grecian ranks during the siege of Troy, the Trojans achieved many successes, but it was not until the Trojans had assailed the camp and were casting fire into the ships of the Greeks that the hero, that is Achilles, permitted Patroclus to array himself in his own armor. So Patroclus famously puts on Achilles' armor and to lead the Myrmidons against the enemy. So, that takes us to the very heat of the battle. Excuse the pun on the famous throwing fire upon the ships of the Achaeans. So, Menoetiade is our patronymic for Patroclus, the best friend of Achilles. So, esun te Menoetiade, kai voice hetyroi sen. And this form is imperfect of eime, I shall go, and we see at 773d, down at the bottom of the page, the various forms that Homer uses. So you see in the middle of this, the third singular of the imperfect, you have a, and even So we've seen this form already. We saw it earlier in the account of Apollo closing in on the Achaean camp. Eklaxan dar o estoi ep omon ko omenoio autu kine tentos ho de nukte evoikos. So he went, he was going like to night, resembling night. Ho de nukte evoikos. Well, here we have the same form. Sun te Menoetiade, kai voice eta voice sen. So he went off with Patroclus and with his companions. Atreides dara neato en alade pro rerusan. So here we have Atreides de, which balances the Peleiades men, what Achilles did on the one hand, now Agamemnon on the other. De Atreides daranea do en halade proverusen. So alade, you have that suffix delta epsilon, meaning in the direction of or towards. So halade, he dragged to the sea, because proveruo or proeruo, if you're not paying attention to the digammas, is to draw down a ship in order to launch her. Because you have to understand that the Greeks didn't leave their ships floating away from the shore. When they landed in a place, they would actually draw the ships up onto the shore and prop them up off the ground. So, atre ides dara neato ein alade prore rusen. And do'ain, of course, is a swift. Ne'ado'ain, a swift ship. And so here we get, in these next three lines, the process. En deratasa krinen erekoisen, en dekatom besete oi, ana de cruceide caliparoi reon, e sen agon, en darkos ebe polumetes odusius. So I've drawn attention to the preposition plus participle plus particle, that is verbal adjective, sentence adverb, excuse me. Particles are known as sentence adverbs because they affect the whole sentence or the relation of one sentence to another. So we have in de, es de, ana de, in de. And so we have to refer back to Smythe 1645, where he says that at this early stage of Greek, it is often impossible to decide whether the preposition belongs to the verb or to the noun. Okay, so thus, in de cruceis neos be at 439 may be cruceis went out of the ship or cruceis went out from the ship. So we don't know whether it's a prepositions or adverb standing alone, prepositional adverb standing alone, or whether it's supposed to be closer to what's later considered to be the separation of the preposition from the verb. And so he goes on, when important words separate the prepositional adverb from the noun, the prepositional adverb is more properly regarded as belonging with the verb, which together with the prepositional adverb governs the noun. So he gives you some examples. But it's just, that's what's going on here. In deretas ekrinen erekoisen, eis dekatombein besete oi, ana de cruce ide kalepareon, heisen agon, en darkos ebe polumetes odusius. So let's look at each line of this. So eretes, eretu, masculine, is a rower. So an ekrinen, first aorist, is from krino, to pick out, select, detail for a mission. So, and ekoisen, ewekoise, is the word for 20, bearing some relation to the Latin vigente. So, en deretas ekrinen ewekoisen, eis dekatomben, besete oi, ane de cruceida kalepareon, eisen agon, in darkos ebe polumetes odusius. So we have bese and eben. These are both from bino, and alternative first and second aorist forms, which can be employed by Homer as he needs the scansion, the meter, to be one thing or another. We see bese is long short, whereas ebe is short long. So he can use whichever one he needs. And here, this is transitive, to put aboard a ship, or intransitive, to go aboard a ship. So again, when you have first and second forms of an aorist, usually the first aorist is transitive and the second aorist is intransitive. So Hesa from Hesdomai is again aorist active, and with Ana, it means to put on board the ship. So Ana de Cruceida Calipareon Hesen Agon. So they put her aboard the ship, bringing her. And Endarkos Abba, the intransitive, he went aboard Polumetis Odysseus, and Arcos we'll see in a second. Arcos here is leader, and it's used here as a predicate noun. So Endarkos Abba Polumetis Odysseus. So many devices, man of many devices, Odysseus, he went on board as leader. So that's the sense of Arcos as a predicate noun, as when we say they made him king. Here, Odysseus went on board as Arcos, as leader. Endarkos Abba Polumetis Odysseus. Okay, so hosto antibioise makesameno ewebesen ansteten lusandagoran paraneusenakaion peleides men epiklesias kaineas ewisas sunte menoi diade kai vois etaroisen atreides daraneatoen alade proverusan enderetas ekrinen erekoisen es decatomben besete oi ane de cruceida calepareon Hesen Agon Endarkos Abba Polumetis Odysseus. Okay, so there we have it. Achilles returns to his camp with his companions on the one hand. Agamemnon, on the other hand, loads the priest's daughter into a boat and sets it off to return her to her father. And from here on, we'll see that the narrative becomes quite variegated as you have various scenes. It moves here and there from various scenes away from where we've just been beside the gathering, or looking in on the gathering of the Greeks as a whole, where Agamemnon and Achilles butted heads. So I look forward to seeing you soon as we proceed. And I look forward to, as we begin to consolidate, looking at the most frequent vocabulary in the poem, so we're ready to go with a little more alacrity. Okay, have a good day, and I will see you soon. Bye-bye.